know what your interest is about the Phoenix Protocol. Where did you first hear about it? Obviously here, for some of you. For some of you, maybe somewhere else. So, what's the interest? You might want to speak up so you can be heard in the microphone.
So you just introduce yourself and let me know. When I looked down, I said, energy and the nature of restoration. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right. For this talk that you gave us, I thought this makes sense to me.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, makes sense to me.
There was a time I wish your organization existed for the sake of my mother. And her children. And the work that I do as a therapist, I find a lot of people, both men and women, who have been abused and used, misused, and that produces trauma. And that's much of what I have been dealing with for many, many years. I dealt with trauma as a child when I didn't know what trauma was. I thought everybody lived that way. I found out somewhere along the line that not everybody does. So the Phoenix Protocol came about, and I'm going to stand out of the way, this way. Have you ever wondered, and you have this in front of you, so you know what's coming up next. I'm going to have to stand. It's right here. What if I could control my temper? That was a big question for me. Because I think I inherited my temper from my father. He taught me what it was like to manage a situation with anger. Well, what if I could overcome my fears? My father tried to tell me there was nothing to fear. Being afraid was a sign of weakness. It took me a long time to figure out that fear is what made him angry. And he would never have admitted that. What if I felt better about myself? Well, I've been working on that ever since. So, I'm going to sit down so I'm not blocking the screen. And hopefully you'll give me a nod if it actually changes up there. It must have. So, nope. What if I felt loved? Well, I felt loved by my mother, but I found out that she paid a price for loving her children. It wasn't safe for her to love her children. Certainly not in the presence of my father, because he wanted all of it for himself. He wanted all of her time and attention. And some of that has been talked about today in our message here. Now, I'm going to touch on this. It's not the focus of my talk today. But what if I don't want to live like this? Because sometimes I use the Phoenix Protocol with someone who's reached this point, or even lower. What if I have suicidal ideation? I've been using this Phoenix Protocol for years and years, since 2007. And in the course of using it with people that I see in my mental health practice, some of those people said things like this: I don't want to live. I want to die. So I substituted I don't want to live with I don't want to live like this. There's a difference. I don't want to live like this is not the same as I don't want to live. I've been facilitating a survivors of suicide group since about 1984. Started out as a member because I lost my brother to suicide in 1978. And I've spent pretty much all my extra time and effort trying to figure out, why would someone do that? And I reached a point where I finally understood why someone would do that, and I realized I'm in danger. Because by the time I reached an understanding of why someone would think that way and feel that way, I was at risk. And I'm going to talk about that slow decline, sometimes not so slow. Sometimes it can be very rapid. But in May of this year, I'm going to be talking at the ACEP conference. ACEP is the Association for Comprehensive Energy Psychology. And I joined that organization a long time ago. And I've spoken at the ACEP conference a couple of times, and I'm going to do that again in May, about the possibility that energy psychology in general, not just the Phoenix Protocol, but energy psychology, can actually have an impact on suicidal ideation. So, what if I feel hopeless? I've decided through a lot of years of working with people. Are you okay? Okay. I understand where you're coming from. Thank you. We talk a lot about depression contributing to suicidal ideation. I think it is actually hopelessness that is a stronger determinant of suicidal ideation. And suicidal ideation can begin pretty early on in the process of reaching the point of being suicidal. But long before it reaches that level, people go down in their level of consciousness. I believe that we all start out in this life on the map of consciousness, which I'm going to show you somewhere in this presentation, at 1,000. It's actually a scale that goes from 1 to 1,000. I'm still trying to figure out what a logarithm is, because that's not my strength. But I hear that term a lot. But from 1 to 1,000 is not linear. In other words, it's not 1,000 points in a linear way. It's a logarithm of whatever that means. So, over the course of our life, we experience events that produce emotion. And some of that emotion is positive. And when we receive it in a positive way, it produces positive emotions. However, when we perceive an event in a negative way, we experience negative emotions. And we might say to ourselves, I'll be ready next time that happens. I'll be ready the next time someone does that to me. This is incredibly human. When something happens to us that we don't like, our survival instinct says to us, I'll be ready the next time. Can you relate to that? I'll be ready the next time. So we think we're protecting ourselves. In reality, the result is an accumulation of negative emotions that get triggered quite frequently. This happens over a period of time. And when it happens repeatedly, our life becomes so stressful. And And we have to find ways to cope. Now, there are a lot of ways that we find to cope, and some of them are not healthy. My brother found alcohol and drugs, and that was his way of coping until it was not any longer. But the difference between mindfulness, the things that we have going on in our head, and one of your handouts is, what are you thinking? And this is about bringing your awareness to thinking about what you're thinking about. It's called meta-thinking. Thinking about what you're thinking about. No. There was a long time I didn't know what thinking about what I was thinking about meant. I just thought about what I thought about without thinking about it. But there's a big difference between mindfulness, and in that picture you can see things. I have to turn around and look. There's a sad face, there's a broken heart, there's a military weapon, a tank, there's a clock, there's the symbol of money, there's a doctor, there's a wrecker pulling a car away. Those are some of the things that happen to us that cause us stress. But it also causes mindfulness, not mindfulness. So, we may or may not recognize all the maladaptive ways that we've learned to cope, and there's some of them up there. I don't think this is a comprehensive list, but it covers a lot of ground. And Stephen Porges developed polyvagal theory. And if I can, I'm going to show it to you. And this particular version of polyvagal theory shows on the lower level where we are able to socially engage. And there's a wavy line that shows us going up and down, up and down, up and down. Depending on what's happened to us, we might even go way up. If you look at that arc at the top, it goes up through fight or flight and all the way up to freeze. And in that fight or flight, we might experience anger and rage and fear and everything you see up there.
What's polyvagal?
Polyvagal means it's a reference to the vagus nerve and all the things that can be experienced in that realm. Poly meaning many.
Yeah, many. Where's the where's the vagal nerve?
It runs all the way through your body, from your brain stem all the way down. Down at least to here, which connects to your legs, which you use when you're in a state of flight. Okay?
Or in like, when you're afraid, your stomach that's part of your vagus nerve.
So if everybody closes your eyes and pictures a puppy, a small, fluffy, soft, warm puppy, what do you notice? Is it a comfortable feeling? Not for you. Okay. Maybe a kitten or a baby.
I can't get the image to come in.
Okay.
I can close my eyes and think about it, so I thought about the sweet puppy I see here.
Can't hear you.
I thought, so I close my eyes, I can close my eyes and think about it. And so I can think about the sweet puppy I see here today with his little tongue hanging out,
Uh-huh.
but I can't visualize
So
it.
you're not a visual person. Okay. Have you ever had a bad experience with a puppy? Okay. So think about the experience you had. If you touch a puppy, is that different? Okay. Now, picture the same puppy many years later as a snarling dog. Is there a difference in what you feel and what you experience? So instead of being down in that social engagement area where you could feel joyful about a puppy, you go at least up into fight or flight and maybe freeze. So the polyvagal theory covers all that ground. Okay? So, the talk today is about raising the level of consciousness. The Phoenix Protocol affects a measurable increase in a subject's level of consciousness, or their LOC, level of consciousness. So let's talk about what is consciousness. It's not a word I thought about many years ago. But consciousness has been defined loosely as a constellation of attributes of mind such as subjectivity, self-awareness, sentience or feeling states, or the perception of relationship between oneself and their environment. Consciousness. Ugh. So, how's it measured? David Hawkins developed the map of consciousness, and Manasa talked about that. She blamed me for the fact that she presents the map of consciousness on a regular basis. And bless her heart, she used this one. Now, she used this one because I cautioned her that the person who is in charge of David Hawkins' estate, Susan Hawkins, had admonished me for using the map of consciousness in one of the presentations I did at ASAP many years ago. And I found out that there is a loophole. She can sue me for using it. As long as I'm not charging anything for it, I can say this is just for educational purposes. And I can dodge her lawsuit. So this is what I'm going to be using at the conference when I present in May. And I hope she doesn't sue me, but if she does, she does. She's very protective of her husband's work. He is no longer around to give permission, and she refuses to give permission, or at least she did when I contacted her. So, okay, there we go. There we go. No, I don't want to go backwards, I'm going forward. There we go. Yes, the book is available if anyone wants it. If you want to look through it, there is a charge for it, and I'll be happy to sign it if you're interested. But what I believe we all came into this life at a high level of consciousness. I believe our hardwired survival instinct tends to react when a threat is perceived. And I've seen a few heads nodding about that. I believe that events that are or are perceived as negative trigger our survival response. Now notice, it doesn't have to be a threat. We just have to perceive it as a threat. And sometimes our perception of a threat is influenced by the things that have already happened to us. So someone who has had a problem with an older bald-headed man might have a negative reaction to me. And I've had that happen in my practice. I've had people say, well, I'm not sure I can work with you because the person who abused me looked a bit like you. And I had one person stop seeing me and told me years later when we bumped into each other that she stopped seeing me because I gave her the evil eye. Now, this is what she called the evil eye. I raised one eyebrow. And at that point, when she told me that, I laughed. And I said, it's because I can only raise one eyebrow. I had a motorcycle accident when I was 18, and it severed a facial nerve over here on this side of my face. And I cannot raise this eyebrow. And she laughed and said, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I perceived you as a threat because you gave me the stink eye. So sometimes I tell a new client, I can only raise one eyebrow in case that's a trigger for you. So,
Do you wear a hat for some people?
whoops. Say again?
Do you wear a hat for some people that are scared about the bald head?
No, I just tell them I have been unable to grow hair for a long time. My genetics is somewhat of a problem. So, those events typically reduce one's level of consciousness. If I can make this work. Well, it's taken a long time to come up. There we go. Reduce the level of consciousness. At the level of 50 or lower, help is needed. What's that mean? Help is needed. I think that will become obvious when I show you the map of consciousness. David Hawkins said that when people get to the level of 50, there is an increased level of risk of self-harm. Not necessarily suicide, but things like cutting, burning, scraping. People who need to be on medication might stop taking their medication, which is a different form of self-harm. So the Phoenix Protocol. Have we all heard of the Phoenix legend about the bird, the phoenix, rising from the ashes? The image of the phoenix on the front of the book. I found that image online. And when I saw that particular image of the phoenix, I decided to contact the artist who happened to live in England. And I said, I'd like to buy the rights to that image. She said, okay. She gave me a price and I bought it. So, I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but the Phoenix Protocol history, I became more interested in it, and I saw the comprehensive, got involved with energy psychology, and I started formulating the process in 2007 in my private practice. And I kept it in my private practice for a number of years because this kind of stuff is woo-woo to a lot of my colleagues. So one's level of consciousness, the protocol looks at the level of consciousness, psychological reversals, accumulated negative emotions, chakras. Does everybody know about chakras? Maybe little bit, okay. When I talked about the puppy and then I talked about the snarling dog, did you feel a change in your physical feelings? Where did you feel it?
My body heat up
Uh-huh.
and recognizing when I'm faced with a snarling dog, the fear
Yeah.
that comes.
Okay, so your body and mind are connected. So just talking about a snarling dog can activate a feeling of fear. And the chakras are a part of that system. We also focus on scrambled energy. And scrambled energy is exactly what it sounds like. I don't know of a better way to describe it other than your energy becomes scrambled.
Can I share?
Please.
Exactly how I walked in here today. Energy.
Okay. What?
Anxiousness, nervousness, thoughts that were racing, trying to say, calm myself down
Uh-huh.
in my body.
So what I have to say today might be useful.
Yeah.
Okay. I get scrambled energy all the time, and I manage it. I didn't used to know how to manage it. So when you talk about life skills, I'm thinking about skills that might help people manage that. Okay? Now, let's see if I can move forward. Also, homolaterality. Now this is a strange one. Homolaterality basically means your energy is moving straight up and down each side of your body, which is a problem. It's supposed to cross over. Okay? It's supposed to cross over, and we experience that. My great-grandson is experiencing that now because he's learning to crawl. And when we crawl, it sets up this cross-crawl situation that starts energy moving left to right. And when that gets off balance, when you're no longer homolateral, it can affect brain development, it can affect hand-eye coordination, it can affect balance, and it can affect how you make decisions. So, I'm finally going to show you this. Now, if you can see that clearly enough, and you look at the rows, the columns and the rows, you'll see that there's a yellow line in the middle, and it crosses over from power to force when you drop below 200. So, show of hands, how many want to live below that yellow line? So, how many want to live above the yellow line? I hope to see all the hands. Okay, great. Do you ever drop below the line? Circumstantially, absolutely. Is it comfortable there? No, it's not. So, life is significantly better above that yellow line. Come on. So we're going to talk about reversals. And a little bit later, we're going to, I can demonstrate that if anyone wants to volunteer. Now, I may trouble, you want to volunteer? Okay. I was about to say we may have trouble finding anyone who's below that yellow line right now. But you have been. Are you interested in finding out where you are now? Okay. We can do that. So there's a massive reversal, a deep level reversal, a specific reversal, a criteria related reversal, and there's also many reversals or recurring reversals. So with the Phoenix Protocol, we can correct those reversals with the understanding that they could come back. Because when something that reminds you of something that happened in the past, we tend to get triggered by that. And if we get stuck with that trigger, if we don't work our way out of that trigger, if we don't correct the reversal, it just recurs. So what I tell people is what I can absolutely correct the reversal. What I can't guarantee is that when you walk out the door, you won't get reversed again. So I want people to do the corrections on their own, and you have a copy of that as well. Now since you're volunteering, don't look at that. Because if you go ahead and look at it, and you do it, then I no longer have a subject to work with. But we're going to move on, if I can, if it will let me. So you've already looked at this page. What are you thinking? What you think is important. Every single thought you think is important. What you think determines what you're going to feel. What you feel determines what you will do. And what you do determines whether you're going to stay stuck or move forward toward your highest and best. Negative emotions will take you down. Before I get to my other volunteer, I'd like for one person to step up and volunteer for a demonstration. Are you right or left-handed?
Right.
You're right-handed. Okay, I want you to turn and face them. You hold your right arm out. Do you have any problems with your right arm?
No.
No pain or anything? Okay, so don't let me push your arm down. Okay? Now, I want you to think about the word joy, and don't let me push your arm down. Good. You got a little stronger. Now, think about the word hate, and don't let me push your arm down. Thank you. Now, don't think about that word anymore. Everything we think makes a difference. So, I can't read this on here. Imagine you were swimming in a crystal clear lake on a beautiful summer day, and you were really enjoying the swim. And then someone comes along in a boat and hands you a stack of bricks. What's going to happen? Pardon?
Sink.
Sink? What's going to happen? Huh?
We could get rid of the bricks, don't hold on to them.
Right. But when somebody hands you a stack of bricks, metaphorically, like, I need you to stay late after work and finish this stack of things. When you had other plans, what do? You stay and finish that stack of work?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Job depends on it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So, what do you think will happen? Sink? Drown? Come on. Most people imagine sinking or drowning. That's It's a normal response. But you're only going to sink or drown if you hold on to them. Just like you said. Okay? A lot of times we don't figure that out until later, when we're carrying a whole dump truck load of something.
That's just if they're.
Yep.
It depends, like if it's just a job, you have to stick with it, certainly depends on the situation.
So, I'm going to bring this closer. Stop using the clicker.
Those are little words.
They are little words, but I wanted them all on one page. Do you recognize any of the words? Are you familiar with them? Are you intimately familiar with them?
A lot of,
Yeah. I find that many of the adults that I see have all of them. 73. And I measure that. How many negative emotions are you carrying around? And when you're carrying those around, your level of consciousness goes down accordingly. So accumulated negative emotions, we begin in early childhood by reading the body language of our parents or their tone of voice, what is okay for us to say and what is okay for us to do and what is not. And some of today's message kind of resonates with this. It was focused on how women are valued in our society. How our caregiver responds establishes what is safe and what is not safe. This begins our perception and a paradigm of what the world and the patterns of behaviors that we start with become our operating system or our operating program for our life. That resonates with the message from today as well. That load of bricks represents a collection of negative emotions that, by adulthood, the majority of people have accumulated. When I say the majority of people, David Hawkins said that the average person in the world is operating below the level of 200. I think there's a correlation between how many negative emotions they're carrying around, how many acts of abuse or trauma they've accumulated or they've experienced results in an accumulation of negative emotions. Emotions are intended to guide our decisions in the moment that produces them. It's not intended for us to hold on to them because every situation is different and we need to judge it according to its current state. The lady who had a problem with an older bald-headed man was judging me by the older bald-headed man that had harmed her. I didn't have a chance. So, when we hold on to those negative emotions, our decisions become heavily biased in favor of our survival instinct so that we learn to avoid risks. And we live our life limited. Now we're going to talk about chakras and the flow of energy. Chakra is a Sanskrit word meaning wheel or vortex, and it refers to each of the 7 energy centers of which our consciousness, our energy system is composed. The reason I ask, where did you feel that shift when we went from the puppy to the snarling dog? You felt that somewhere. One of your chakras was activated. Your stomach may have tightened. Your chest may have tightened. Your jaw may have tightened. Your brain may have clenched. Our chakras reflect that. These chakras function as pumps or valves regulating the flow of energy through our energy system, and they react based on our history. Now, scrambled energy. It's exactly what it sounds like. I'm not going to dwell on that. Homolateral, as I said before, is when our energy moves up and down both sides of the body, but doesn't cross over. We're going to talk a little bit about magnet therapy. I brought some magnets with me, and I use those in doing the Phoenix Protocol. There are ways of knowing. All of these require an unbiased integrity on the part of the tester. Muscle testing, when I tested her, I don't have any bias about that. If I did, I'd be pushing differently based on what my bias is. I don't need to do that. I want to know what her reaction is. I know that hate is going to make her weak. Fear is going to make her weak. In fact, anything below that yellow line on the map of consciousness is going to make someone go weak. So there is applied kinesthetics or muscle testing. There is also a sway test. And there is also a pendulum. Questions about the sway test? Does anybody know what it is? Okay. You know what it is?
Yes, I do.
You want to demonstrate it?
I can, yeah.
Would you?
I sure can, yeah. So I'll just say, I mean, I've been working with Ron for 13 years now, so the sway test has been just incredibly helpful to me in trying to determine when an indecision or the direction to go in. And it's been extremely effective, so I use it often.
Okay. Can you stand and demonstrate?
Sure.
Any way you choose. So she's standing with her feet apart, so she has a wide stance. She's standing with her hands loose at her side and her eyes closed.
And I'm going to make a statement first to make sure that I am properly, I guess that my chakras are clear, that I'm properly grounded. So I'm just going to say, my name is Yada, and I sway forward, which is confirmation. If I say, my name is Sue, I sway backward, because it's not my name. So then I know, okay, if I had swayed backward saying my name is Yada, then I know I needed to do something to kind of clear chakras,
Or to correct
clear
reversals.
the correct reversals, or deal with the scrambled energy and so on. So, so I'm trying to think.
True, false.
Yeah, kind of like
True,
yes,
false.
no.
Yes or no.
Okay.
It's a
So-
binary
Okay.
language.
So I could say, it's in my best interest today to go to the park and sit in the sun.
What was that? It's
To
in
go
my-
to the park and sit in the sun, soak
Okay.
in some sun. As
Okay.
opposed to, it is in my best interest to stay home and grade. Grade.
Great. She's a teacher.
So I'm trying to determine something about this is just a very simple thing, right? It's not like, oh, I should break up with somebody or something. You could do it for that too. But just today, I just trying to decide, like, my mind is telling me, oh, I got a grade. It's a little bit like that brick, right? Like, I've got my students are going to be mad at me if I don't get this grading done. But that's not in my best interest today. I really should go and hang out in this beautiful weather.
So, if you wouldn't mind standing up, you can stand and start simply by saying what your name is and see what happens. And then you could say a false name. My name is Sue, and see what happens. Eyes closed so that you get in touch with your equilibrium. That's what keeps us all upright.
So we're supposed to,
You don't have to say it out loud. You can just Would anyone like to share? What happened?
I said, my name is Amber, and I said, my name is Matt.
And Matt, what happened when you said my name is Amber?
How do you keep your thoughts out of it, your direction out of it?
That's the tricky part. You have to be unbiased. You have to be open to what is true and what is false. So that's one way of testing. So the last way of testing is to use a pendulum for dowsing. Have you heard of dowsing?
did it for my kids.
Can't hear you.
Did it when I was pregnant for my kids to find out which kids which was the sex was.
Okay. Was it accurate?
Yes.
Okay. I did the same thing for both my daughters. And I was accurate. My grandfather was a dowser, but he dowsed for water. He lived on a 60-acre plot down close to Lake Monroe, and he had found 4 underground springs on his property, and that's where they got their water. He carried water in buckets down a big hill, which meant he had to come back up over the hill. And he was asthmatic, and that became a real struggle, and he had to move to town where he got city water. But I had seen him do that. And when someone told me about a different way of dowsing, I thought, that's interesting. I'd like to try that. So I did. Does anyone here use pendulum? Okay. What's your experience with pendulum? Hannah?
I really have to keep my brain clear to use it correctly.
Okay, that's what we already said, isn't it?
And often the pendulum will go the opposite direction first and then turn and go the other direction.
Yeah. Okay. So I just have to figure out where I hid my pendulum. It's okay, I'll get it. Thank you. I happen to have brought a number of them. So, can all you see here?
Yeah.
So I usually shorten the chain and I'm going to hold as steady as I can and say, my name is Ron. And it goes clockwise. And I say, my name is Bob. And pretty quickly it just reverses direction. Show me truth. Clockwise. Show me false. Counterclockwise. show me yes, and show me no. So this happened the first time someone handed me a pendulum and asked me to try this. It scared the heck out of me because I was brought up in a pretty fundamentalist belief system.
So how do you find water?
I don't find water with a pendulum.
That's why I'm asking, how did you
Dowsing
guys-
for water is done usually with a pair of rods
Oh, I've seen those, yeah,
or a three-pronged willow stick.
right. And then
Willow
Shakes or something?
seek water.
Seek water. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lady on the internet too that channels different, spiritual guides.
Mhm.
She does a yes, no, you know, when it goes this way, they're saying yes to her questions, but when this way is no.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
It is. Now, I use it in the way that I'm demonstrating.
You do it more for what your unconscious is
Yeah.
telling you. Okay.
I don't know that I can't contact spirit guides,
Right.
or I probably do have some,
Mhm.
but I haven't explored that.
Right, so you just
I'm-
do it, what is the energy going on in my body?
Mhm.
What's true and what's false? Okay. Or
Right.
what's yes.
What's impacting my or my client's life?
Okay.
That's what I'm looking for. So, questions so far?
Does it need to be just like that? Like I have a necklace with a crystal on it. I don't know if that would work or if it has to be like just exactly that.
It doesn't have to be exactly that. When I don't have a pendulum, what I will do, I'm not gonna test your right arm. I saw that. When I don't have a pendulum, I will take off a ring and use a piece of dental floss and make a loop, and I'll suspend the ring, and it may not move in a balanced way, but it moves clockwise or counterclockwise. So, and if I don't have a ring and I don't have dental floss, I'll stand and do the sway test. Or I'll use the arm, someone's arm, and test. So there's any number of ways to do this.
I have a question.
Yes?
Is everybody's true and false and yes and no going to be the same with the pendulum?
No. Using a pendulum, some people's yes or true will be straight one way, and false will be crosswise. So it's necessary if you're going to try a pendulum to see what works for you. And an additional question is, can everybody do this? Not everybody can do this. If they have a strong bias or a disbelief, that's going to interfere.
Right.
Almost everyone can do this, unless they have a bad shoulder. So a lot of different things come into play. Hawkins said that in order to be a tester, you have to be at least at 200 or higher, or 250, to be able to be a tester.
There's also a finger pull.
If you make a loop,
Yeah, you make a loop, and if I can hold it, or, and I'm testing myself, whatever the statement is, if it's true, I can hold it, if it's not, it breaks free. So that's one way you can test too.
which is sort of the same as the arm
Yeah,
going weak,
exactly.
the fingers go weak. So it's the same sort of thing. Okay? How we doing? Questions? Does anyone need a break? Okay. I didn't see any heads.
I might need to leave early. I need to, but I
I will be so furious if you have to leave.
when we're going till what time?
I'm going for 2 hours, maybe.
Okay, I might need to leave.
It just depends on how things go. I'm going to move along. I think we've already covered that verbally. Sway testing, we've covered that. Pendulum or dowsing, we've covered that. This is a form that you have in front of you. Now then, Amber, you want to volunteer? Okay. I want you to take the form that is on the screen right now, and you might want a book or something to write on. I will offer you this. So is it okay if I test you? Is it okay if I use the pendulum? Okay. I'm going to, Matt, can I steal that chair? Now, I will tell you that I could have tested you from back there. I could have tested you from a mile away or 100 miles away. As long as I'm testing you and I'm using integrity to do so, it doesn't matter how far away you are. Your energy is everywhere. So, I'm going to ask, I already have your permission. Is it okay for me to test Amber? Now, if I get a no for that, I find out, do I have reversals? So I try to do this with all the integrity that I can have, okay? At this moment, on the map of consciousness, on a scale from 1 to 1,000, Amber is at 200 or higher. Amber is at 100 or higher. Amber is at 125 or higher. Amber is at 150 or higher. Amber is at 175 or higher. Amber is at 185 or higher. 195 or higher. I've been doing this a while. Amber is at 199. Or higher. So I started out testing it to see if you were at 200, and then I went down and came back up. So you're at 199. So next to LOC, which stands for level of consciousness, I want you to put 199. And the next thing on that page is accumulated emotions.
Reversals.
I'm sorry? Reversals. Okay, does Amber have any psychological reversals? Thank you, Christian, for keeping me straight. I get a yes. Does Amber have a massive reversal? Well, that's a definite yes. So circle the word massive. Does Amber have a deep level reversal? Now, a deep level reversal means that this problem is too strong for you to ever get over. Okay? And some people are there. They think they can't possibly get over this problem. But that's not the case for you. Does Amber have a specific reversal? Okay. What that means is you probably have some form of a phobia, a fear. A snarling dog might be one of them. Okay? So you have a specific reversal. Did you circle that? Does Amber have a criteria-related reversal? Yes. Now, a criteria-related reversal means there's something you have to accomplish before you can get better. Does that make sense? Okay. Does Amber have a mini reversal? That's going to be no. And does Amber have a recurring reversal? That's also going to be no. And that's because the reversals you have always been there and they've never been corrected. If they had been corrected and then came back, they would be mini reversal or a recurring reversal. Okay? So, yeah, you could have a deep level reversal, but you don't. Okay? Questions? Okay. Now, I'll ask you, does Amber have any accumulated or trapped emotions? I'll be darned. That's unusual. That's a no. You've made progress. Okay? So put 0 on that line. And the next one is about chakras. Are Amber's chakras clear and balanced? I have good news for you. Your chakras are clear and balanced. Does Amber have scrambled energy? No. Now, you said you had scrambled energy when you came today. I'd say you were nervous. You did some exercises. Yeah. Okay. So these are exercises you already knew. Okay. And at this moment, is Amber homolateral? That's a yes. Okay? There are exercises that we can do to fix all of these. What I typically do is I start out with the reversals and the accumulated emotions. Since you have none of those, we're going to start with the correction of the reversals. Okay? Now, bring out that other sheet that I told you not to look at. And everyone can participate in this. The first one is done right here. There's a gland, Dr. who attends here, during one of my demonstrations, he said, yeah, there's a gland here that collects toxins like cortisol and epinephrine.
Lymph gland?
I assume so. So find your collarbone and then drop off into that soft area below that and rub that gently. We're not trying to make a hole, Matt. Are you left-handed, by the way? Yeah. Okay. You're right-handed. So go to the other side with the other hand. There you go.
It should feel like a little sore.
I'm sorry?
It should feel a little sore also.
Well, I wouldn't say the word should. It could feel sore. Is it sore? Okay. When it's full of toxins, it might be very sore. Okay? I've had people go, ow, I don't want to do that.
I have experienced it.
Okay. Repeat 3 times, I deeply love and accept myself.
I deeply love and accept myself. I deeply love and accept myself.
You don't have to say it out loud, but I want her to because I want to hear what she says.
I deeply love and accept myself.
Good. That was 3 times. Okay? The next one is you want to tap where this line comes across, right below the little finger, the big knuckle on the little finger, there's a line. Tap there. We can call that the karate chop.
That's what I did before I got a new spot.
Okay. I deeply love and accept myself, even though I struggle.
I deeply love and accept myself, even though I struggle.
Mhm. I deeply love and accept myself, even though I struggle.
I deeply love and accept myself, even though I struggle.
I deeply
I
love.
deeply love and accept myself, even though I struggle.
I love the way you said that with meaning. Okay? It makes a difference when you say it with meaning. Okay? Now, we're going to go right here. I deeply love and accept myself while I heal.
I deeply love and accept myself while I heal. I deeply love and accept myself while I heal. I deeply love and accept myself while I heal.
Now, I just got an image of the lion. Man, on the Wizard of Oz. I do believe, I do believe. Okay? And the last one is back here at the side of your hand. I deeply love and accept myself no matter what.
I deeply love and accept myself no matter what.
3 times.
I deeply love and accept myself no matter what. I deeply love and accept myself no matter what.
Okay. You know what I didn't do? Yes, I did. What was your level of consciousness?
199.
Okay, great. Now, at this moment, steady, Ron. Does Amber have any psychological reversals? You just corrected them. So no, you don't have any. At this moment, does Amber have any accumulated or trapped emotions? Now I'm going to go ahead and check the other things. So go back to your form. At this moment, are her chakras clear and balanced? They already were, weren't they? Okay. Does Amber have scrambled energy? What was it before? Okay. At this moment, is Amber homolateral? That too has corrected. So sometimes when we do the first part, it clears everything. And sometimes I actually have to do the corrections for homolateral separate. And I use Donna Eden's method for that. You are familiar.
I am.
Okay. I actually had the privilege of meeting Donna Eden. And she's exactly the way she's pictured on the back of her book. She has a huge smile on her face, seemingly all the time. I don't know what her husband would say about that, but in public, she always has that smile on her face. I think it's probably always there. But I use her methods to do that, and she knows that. Her correction of other things on here are also from her book, Energy Medicine. So now I wonder, at this moment, on the map of consciousness, on a scale from 1 to 1,000, Amber is at 199 or higher. 310 or higher. 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, 1,000. Or higher. I'm sorry, Amber, it only goes to 1,000. How do you feel?
I feel, well, I feel excited
Yeah.
And so integrating, remembering to do it, right, when I need to do it. Well, we always need to do it, but I have also had a great loss recently in my life, and these energy practices, where, I don't know the right word for it, but they have helped me process this grief
Mhm.
and continue to show up in these spaces and be present where I'm, where I'm at, which is very important to be able to be present for other people, in their time of need.
Yes.
And so, I am so grateful that he's helped me. And it's just, I think for me, it's just, affirmation, it's affirming that I'm doing the work. I'm going in the right direction. Like, these are synchronicities, my healing journey and my path forward.
Yes.
And so I'm all smiles.
Okay.
Feel good.
Fantastic. You have any questions? Would it be safe to assume that this loss you've experienced is a traumatic event?
Yes.
Okay. The other practice that I do is EMDR.
Yes.
Have you heard of that?
Yes.
Have you experienced it?
Yes.
Okay. So if you have a practitioner who does EMDR, then you can process the trauma. It will not make the grief go away. It will make the trauma less traumatic, depending on how well you are willing to participate in that. EMDR is great for addressing the trauma so that trauma interferes with grief. If you can treat the trauma, then it's easier for the grief process to continue, because grief sometimes takes time. Okay. Well, I experienced the trauma of my brother's suicide, and for me, his suicide is now a blessing because it forced me to do what I needed to do, which is exactly what I've been doing today. So I don't grieve his loss anymore. I miss him, but I now celebrate the gift that I got from that loss. And as long as I'm using it for this purpose, I'm not grieving, I'm celebrating. Okay? Thank you all for being here. Are there any questions?
Really amazing to watch it.
I've tried teaching this to other people, and they can't comprehend that this can be done within an hour session. It took a little longer because I'm teaching
Yeah.
everyone, but what I actually did with her took quite a bit less than an hour.
Pretty amazing.
The very first time I went to see Ron,
Pardon?
the very first time I went to see you, I was dealing with a traumatic situation. And the first thing you said to me was, I believe you'll feel better by the time you leave here today, within an hour. And I couldn't believe that. And I'm, by nature a skeptic, right? And I couldn't fathom, because the grief was the pain was so intense. And
Yes.
I had been dealing with this pain that had been going on, and somebody then said, I think you need to see Ron. And I thank that person for telling me that, and then you said that to me, I believe, and it was just so friendly, and it was just so confident, and you worked with the magnet with me on that day.
Yes.
And it was really life-changing, because I left there floating on air and feeling I felt like it was no longer controlling me.
Thank you for bringing that up. Because Amber had no accumulated or trapped emotions, that means she experiences emotions, but they weren't trapped. If she had trapped emotions, what I would have done was use magnet therapy, because the emotions that are trapped, you saw the mindfulness. Those emotions that we have held on to are literally in our brain, and the signals from those emotions are moving down our spine and into our nervous system where we feel them. She gave me a shortcut by not having it. But I do want to share that when there are trapped emotions, a magnet run down your back from about C7, right about here where that bump is, all the way down the back, will allow you to release those if you're willing. If you're not willing, you'll hold on to them. It's when we become willing to let them go. Some people don't feel safe letting go.
And
So they
those
hold
can
on.
be like, manifest as back pain or
Oh, absolutely.
stomach issues or
Yeah,
depending on where they're trapped, where,
yeah. So I've done this with people, and they will say at the end, by the way, my neck pain is gone, or my back pain is gone, or whatever it is. I don't get to control what they let go of. I can't make them let go of it. I can only invite them to let go of it.
One of the things on the list was, I think it was the deep reversal. So in that case, you said that is probably not able to get better,
Not willing.
not willing. Okay. I got it.
Okay? I think everyone is able to. It's because of whatever their life experience has been, what they believe about themselves and about the world determines whether or not they will.
Okay, I see.
So what often happens, I do most of this with someone, and whatever is remaining, like if they have accumulated emotions, I've already had them drop that piece of paper, just as an experience. Drop it, like, let it go. And if they didn't drop it, then they're still holding on to it. So I'll go over and pick that piece of paper up, and I say, in some cases, I can tell them exactly which ones they're holding on to. If they're holding on to half of them, I may not have time to do that. But if they're holding on to 3 or 4, I can identify which ones they are using a pendulum and invite them again. Are you sure you want to hold on to that? And if they decide they'd like to let go of it, they can, and they do.
Can I share that? So part of my therapy, I'm just gonna name drop, my therapist is Lisa McMichaels, and, we do somatic work, and
Mhm.
so, I think what I understand is that because of all of the trauma that I've experienced from childhood all the way into my adulthood, I disassociated from my body in the way that I didn't have, I couldn't acknowledge, and I still am struggling in therapy. My therapist will ask me, where do you feel that? And I'm like, it's in my head. I feel it in my head. You know, so I'm still having a whole lot of trouble, reintegrating back into my body to allow myself to feel where I'm feeling it.
Mhm.
And, it is such an experience because I'll feel my body heat up, but I won't be able to tell you, like, it's in the pit of my stomach. Or, you know, like, oh, it moved over here to my shoulder. I'm just like, I don't think I'm doing it right, you know, and so like, I'll get,
So when your body heats up, is it all over?
it's usually all over the backside of my shoulders starts and then up into my head.
Okay. So at the time in your childhood or in whenever it happened, dissociation was your only choice at that time. And I would like to encourage you to believe that you can identify it, you can overcome it. It's a matter of when. If your therapist is interested in knowing more about what I do, if they are an EMDR therapist, I'd be happy to collaborate and support your work with them. I'm always happy to share what I do with another therapist to expand what they're already doing. They've obviously done well by you. So in May, when I go to Reston, Virginia, I'm going to be hoping a lot of therapists are there to learn what I'm doing or to modify what they are doing to expand the progress that they can make, or the understanding that they might be able to prevent suicide. That's something that really needs to be dealt with. Because I don't believe people want to die. I believe they don't want to live the way they're living because of what has happened to them. So this has been a joy for me to be here. I'm glad that you all stayed. I'll be happy to sign books or do whatever I need to do. If you want a book, I gifted one to you because I want your organization to have one, okay?
I want to say too, I've been through years and years of therapy, and until the last couple of years, I started EMDR, and I totally had a breakthrough in everything in my whole life, so it works.
Well, I had post-traumatic stress disorder for 20 years. And the first time someone did EMDR with me, that changed. The very first time. And the following Monday, I called and found out where the next training was.
Yeah, it's a miracle. It's amazing.
Thank you all.
So much.